All right, guys, welcome back to Noob class. Last video, we talked about the early game units and just the basics about them, how much they cost to build them, how much the upkeep on them is, and what are some of their strengths and weaknesses, how fast are they. Today, we're going to talk about some basic tips for a sound military strategy. So let's bounce on through these slides here. There's our three main early game units. We're going to talk about some of the what I would call mech early game units, which include the cannon and the cruiser. We're going to talk about that coming up here soon. But right now we're just sticking to the early game. So here's early military play. And again, this slide deck, I'm going to put it in the description below so that you can look at it without having to watch the video. This is a Google Slides play deck, slide deck, whatever the hell. And so you can come back and look at this at any time. So the first thing I do recommend is reach out to your neighbors. First thing, look around you. Reach out to your neighbors, and as I've mentioned earlier in this series, just a friendly overture. Hey, you want to team up? You interested in working together? And as that goes back and forth, you'll get a feel for whether they're serious about it. If they act shady, you'll kind of feel it. A lot of times they'll refuse to answer if they have ill intent towards you. You'll get a hang of that as time goes on, but most of the time, early in the game, unless they're coming in with like 6 of their friends and they're going to make an alliance off the bat, most people are open to early game alliances. So that's the first thing that I always do. The reason for that is once you go back and forth a couple times with somebody and you feel secure about them, you may want to share right of way with them. That's an option that you can do on the diplomacy button there. And that's something we should probably talk about here as well. But you can give them right of way. That's from the messages. You go to messages and then you click on the little bag that means a trade. And you can trade right of way for right of way. And it's just one of those ways that you're kind of opening up to each other, giving some trust to each other. But the point is, if you feel like you have a solid ally on your border, and again, this is reaching out to neighbors who you share a border with, then you can depopulate that border. Now, you might still want to leave a couple guys there. You don't want to tempt somebody with just a free territory. They can just see that literally all they have to do is walk in and declare war on you, and they can take 3 of your territories. So you might leave a couple there just to be like, yeah, if you're gonna attack me, if you're gonna backstab me, then we're gonna take a little bit of blood anyway, you know. But I would say I'd say leave everyone except for a couple. And people will mention that, you know, potentially, you know, you might worry that somebody's going to stab you in the back. And the truth is, you know, anybody could at any time. And I feel like, you know, the truth is, especially early in the game like this, when you haven't invested a lot of time, just trust people, you know, make alliances, trust them. And my reasoning is this, you know, let's just say 50-50. Half the time they're worthy of your trust, and they'll remain loyal to you. In that case, you can depopulate one of your borders and move those troops to where they can start to conquer, right? And then the other case is, if they're shady and backstabby, then you're kind of screwed anyway, you know, because you've started on a map with a, you know, shithead right next to you, and you know, that's one thing that shitheads do is screw stuff up for everyone. So then you just, you know, if things go south, archive the game and start another one, right? We're talking early game stuff here. So number one, reach out to friends around you, people around you. Try to establish those relationships early on, and then depopulate the border. Send those troops where they are needed. Well, what does that mean? Let's talk about it. So before you start to do anything aggressive, I would say build level 1 forts in vulnerable territories. That means territories that have several foreign neighbors. Okay, I tend to think of it as my corners, right? A lot of times your country might have sort of a triangular shape or a rectangular shape, roughly. And think about your corners are the ones that on, you know, as many as 3 sides might have foreign territories around them, right? So you just have, they're more vulnerable. They can be attacked into from 3 different territories. And we all start the map with 10 people on each territory. So right away, that guy has 10 infantry that start, you know, you start the map with, and there are 30 infantry that are potentially able to attack you. So just immediately go ahead and build level 1 forts in those vulnerable territories. Now, I think usually 3 forts is enough, but it depends on your situation. If you happen to have a lot of steel, a lot of iron rather, you might want to build 4 forts, because that's the thing about forts. They cost 2,000 iron. They cost a lot of iron. So if you've got a lot of iron, build more forts. What the heck? But one thing I'll say, let's move on to step 3 here. Choose one country to attack. Hopefully one that has few or no forts. You do not want to attack into forts. Okay. So I also say attack with at least 2-to-1 odds. I feel strongly about this principle of overwhelming force. If you attack a 10 stack with a 12 stack, then you'll be left with maybe 1 or 2 guys, right? But if you attack a 10 stack with 50 guys, you probably will only lose maybe 6 guys. Why will you lose fewer? Well, because you're attacking with greater force, with greater power. So you're killing more of your enemies each turn. So there are fewer of them to attack back the next turn, right? So, but I would say at least 2-to-1, 20-to-10 is a safe bet. Now remember we're talking no forts. There's no forts involved here, hopefully. Okay, hopefully. So the other thing is, if you've chosen the country that you want to attack, you don't need to build forts there, right? The thought being you're going to stream through and hopefully break through and at least capture several of his territories, and that's where you'll build the forts. Don't build the forts where they're going to end up being backcountry, right? It's like you build forts and then you conquer past them, and now you just have forts sitting, deep in your own territory. It's no good. So when you're thinking about where to build those forts from step 2 up here, do also be thinking about where you're going to be attacking, in which direction you're going to be attacking. So to me, the ideal early game situation is you found someone who seems pretty trustworthy. So you depopulate that border. Let's say there's 3 territories that you share in common with them. You move everyone but 2 in each one forward towards where you want to attack. Now, usually you're surrounded by at least 3 other countries, sometimes 4. So that's going to inform where you put your forts as well. You don't necessarily need to build forts against that ally, right? That potential ally behind you. Again, these are early forts, early game, early forts. If you're attacking into one country and you've got an ally at your back, then you might want to put your forts on either side where you feel like you might be vulnerable from attack from either side. But just think about where you're attacking. You don't need forts there. And your ally, if you share some territory with an ally, you don't need forts there. All right. Number 4 is a big one. And I see noobs do this all the time. Do not fight with more than one country at a time. Now, again, this is early game. And sometimes you have to be at war with more than one country. I played games where I'm at war with 4 countries. But even into the middle and late game, this is a good policy to try to stick with, because being at war affects that morale thing I was talking about. It affects your entire nation. -5 morale across your entire nation for every country you're at war with. So in that example I was giving, when I've been at war with, say, 5 countries, that's -25 across my entire country. So every single one of my territories gets a -25 to their province morale. And of course, that just affects everything in a really bad way. Also, one of the things about morale is when your territories have low morale, they produce less stuff. And so we do want to pay attention to morale, because economy is important. You want to be producing as much steel and food, wood, and energy resources as you possibly can. So again, you can do that by just sticking to one enemy at a time, completely defeat them, and then turn around and think about where you want to go next. Okay, this is a big one. Pay attention to ways that your enemies can counterattack. This is especially important as you attack into a country. Let's just say you broke through, you're now in their territory. Let's say you took 1, maybe 2 of their territories. Be careful, because if they have a way to attack sort of maybe flank you and attack back into your back country, you need to defend against that. Now, especially against the AI. The computer AI loves to send little stacks of 2 guys that run around your main army and just capture your provinces in the back country. And it's so frustrating because then you have to send guys back to recapture it. You lose those resources generation while they have it, and the morale of those territories get knocked way down because they get captured by an enemy. That's really horrible for the morale of that territory. So, the rule here, number 5, don't leave exposed territories defenseless, especially if you're at war. Okay, now this is a huge one. As you're attacking in, check the territory morale, because as soon as you capture a territory, the morale will be 25%. That's just the way it is. You just now got through taking over with force a territory. The people in that territory are not going to be happy. In fact, they're going to be very unhappy at 25% morale. Now, the good news is if you're running a good sort of a tight ship, you're only at war with one country. You're keeping all of your materials, all of your resources up. So nothing's worse than having a food shortage or an energy shortage or a materials shortage. That will affect your morale. But if you're staying on top of that and keeping all of your stuff in the blue, making sure you've got, 500 to 1,000 of each of those things available, then at day change, that 25 will usually go up to about 33 or 34. Once it hits that 33 or 34, you can leave. You don't have to worry about them rebelling, even though sometimes smoke will still be coming out of it if it's at 33. If it's at 33, you can leave. There might be like a 1% chance that they will rebel, but it's not worth worrying about. However, while it is 25%, you need to leave 5 or 6 troops behind to prevent rebellion. And I've heard the official word is 6. That to me means if you really want to send as many on for further conquering as possible, you could probably get away with leaving 5, meaning there would be only like a 10% chance of rebellion. If rebellion happens, it will happen at day change. And if rebellion doesn't happen, then that boost to your morale will happen at day change. Again, keeping in mind that you're only at war with one country, you've kept all your resources in full, you don't have any shortages going on that would cause further morale problems, then almost always it'll bump up at day change to 33 or higher. And at that time, you can vacate and move those troops forward for further conquering. All right. Lastly here, this is huge. Some of the grandest victories I've won in this game is fighting defensively. So again, if you've got some forts, there's a lot of noobs out there, a lot of people who do not understand forts. And in fact, I'm on the Reddit right now, 1914 Reddit. People are constantly coming on there. How come I lost 14 guys and he only lost 3 guys? It's because of forts. He's in a fort. You're attacking into a fort. Don't do that. Don't attack into a fort. Now, I will say, as you get to be a better player, there are some ways that you can attack into a fort, especially if you have enough of a numerical advantage. If you know it's only a level 1 fort, for instance, you could attack with 30 guys in and capture 10 guys from a fort, but know you're going to take losses. You're going to lose probably 15, 17 guys to kill those 10 guys in the fort. So you have to be willing to pay the price if you're going to attack into a fort. And sometimes you have to. Like, what if it's this capital? You've just, you've taken everything else. Now there's only a capital left. There's a fort and there's 10 guys in it. By the way, if you can see how many guys are in the fort, that means it's a level 1 fort. If you can't see how many are in it and you're right next to it, you can't see how many are in it, that means it's level 2 or higher. So once it's level 2 or higher, that is even more of a problem. It's just obviously it protects the people inside more, and it takes longer for you to wear it down, because eventually after attacking, you do wear it down. One thing about infantry is they're pretty good against buildings. I believe they attack with 1.2 against buildings. That's not bad. Buildings have hit points too, and once you wear them away when you're attacking that defensive position, eventually they'll be gone, and they won't have a fortress to hide in anymore. You've literally just worn it out from around them. But anyway, play defensively if you can. I have won some huge battles. In fact, that cavalry game I was talking about earlier in this series where I was only allowed to build cavalry. I had a really lucky break that this moron ran at me with like 50 guys, and it was a long run. He was running on these roads. It was in Russia, and Russia has some really big open territories with a lot of land. And he was running at me for like hours to get to me. And in that time, I had time to build up to, I think, a level 3. I already had like a level 2, but I was able to build another level fortress. And then I just waited inside with like 20 or 30 guys and killed like 55, really broke his back. And then as soon as that was done, he didn't have any more troops. So then I just like, okay, let's go, and just took over his entire country. So fight defensively whenever possible. And I will tell you this, as important as it is to be nice and reach out to your neighbors, if there's somebody that you want to attack, consider the idea of building a fort. If it works out on the map strategically, think about building a fort and then goading him into attacking you. You know, like troll him, you know, send him a message. Hey, I noticed that you're a noob, you know, something like that. You know, I don't know. You know how to troll him. See if you can get him to attack you. There's some really good reasons for that in terms of popularity and morale as well, but that is later game stuff. That is not early game stuff that we have to worry about. So, all right, thanks for checking in, guys. The next video we have will be a particular strategy for delivering the most possible damage in a short period of time. So check back with us in a minute. We're going to go over that. You probably heard of the flower method. I sometimes call it the skewer method. And you'll find out why in our next video. So thanks for checking in, guys. I'll see y'all next time. Adios, amigos.